On February 8, 2026, the rap battle that the world thought ended with a Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl performance has officially moved from the recording studio to a federal courtroom in New York, and the stakes are no longer just about who wears the crown. Drake is not just fighting for his reputation anymore. He is fighting for the survival of his billion-dollar empire against the very label that helped build it. The common belief is that Drake is simply a sore loser, unable to accept that Not Like Us became the definitive anthem of a generation. But the superior reality, backed by a massive discovery when in court this week, suggests that Drake has found the literal smoking gun, the secret financial receipt that proves Universal Music Group may have intentionally orchestrated his downfall to reset the market value of their most expensive artists. Today, we are answering the three questions that are currently sending shockwaves through the boardrooms of Hollywood. First, did Universal Music Group actually use illegal bot farms to inflate Kendrick Lamar's streaming numbers to ensure Drake's brand was effectively tanked? Second, why did a federal judge just grant Drake's legal team full access to Kendrick's private contracts and Universal's internal emails? And finally, is Drake's rumored 2026 World Cup halftime show a strategic retaliation that will finally break the industry's silence? This is not just a hip-hop beef. It is a corporate civil war with receipts that go back years, involving expert analysis from the top entertainment lawyers and public relations strategists who say this discovery could change how every music contract is written forever. Our team has mapped out the timelines and pulled the filings to show you exactly how the house of cards is falling. To understand the magnitude of what is happening right now, we have to look at the second most shocking point in this entire saga, which is the quantitative proof of the botting cycle. According to the pre-action petition filed on November 25, 2025, and updated with fresh evidence in early February 2026, Drake's legal team claims to have identified mathematical impossibilities in the streaming growth of the diss tracks aimed at him. Per the filing, during a specific 6-hour window in June 2024, the track Not Like Us saw a 3,000% spike in unique listeners originating from IP addresses tied to known server farms in Southeast Asia and Eastern Europe. This is not just a minor anomaly. This is data-backed allegation that Universal Music Group, the label that represents both artists, conspired with third-party streaming accelerators to maximize the cultural dominance of a song that called their other top earner a predator. Why would a label do this to their own cash cow? As a leading public relations strategist recently told Billboard on February 4, 2026, the motive is simple. Drake's leverage over the label was too high. He was the only artist with the power to walk away and take the industry with him. By elevating Kendrick through artificial means, the label created a new king they could control, effectively devaluing Drake's bargaining chips just as he was entering a massive contract renegotiation period. Drake is not just mad about a song, he is presenting evidence that his own business partners used his own marketing budget to fund his public execution. Now we reach the single most shocking turning point in this entire saga, which is the discovery breakthrough that occurred just 48 hours ago. At the 3-minute mark of this legal battle, the court denied Universal's desperate request to stop the discovery process. This means that for the first time in history, the most secretive company in music has to hand over the keys to the kingdom. Per the court order on February 6, 2026, Drake now has legal permission to subpoena Kendrick Lamar's private compensation structures, the internal emails regarding Super Bowl 59, and every scrap of paper related to how Not Like Us was promoted to radio stations. This is the ultimate receipt. For years, rumors have swirled about pay-for-play schemes and illegal radio incentives, but those secrets were protected by non-disclosure agreements. Now, those agreements are worthless in the face of a federal judge. An entertainment lawyer speaking on the record to the New York Times yesterday noted that if these documents show that Universal paid media companies for preferential treatment of the diss track while simultaneously suppressing Drake's own music, it constitutes a massive breach of fiduciary duty. Drake's team is looking for what they call call the kill switch, a documented plan where executives discussed transitioning the brand away from the October's very own label. If Drake finds what he is looking for, he will not just win a lawsuit, he could legally terminate his entire contract, effectively becoming the most powerful independent artist in history and taking his entire music catalog with him for free. This would cost the label billions of dollars in future revenue and likely trigger a total collapse of their stock price. The third major piece of this puzzle involves the Super Bowl and Grammy connection. Per Variety on February 3, 2026, the 68th annual Grammy Awards, where Kendrick Lamar won 5 trophies for a song that many legal experts considered defamatory, are now part of the federal record. Drake's team is alleging that the label used its institutional influence to ensure the Recording Academy ignored the factual inaccuracies in the lyrics in favor of the viral narrative. The expectation was that the awards were about artistic merit, but the reality being presented in court is that the awards were a valuation booster for the label's new favorite asset. According to an insider report from The Hollywood Reporter in late 2025, internal memos show that the marketing budget for Kendrick's Super Bowl performance was triple what was originally allocated for the entire album cycle. This is the clear public relations motive. By making the Kendrick versus Drake feud the biggest story of 2025, the label ensured that streaming revenue hit record highs at a time when the industry was otherwise stagnating. They didn't care who won the rap battle, they just cared that the world was watching and clicking. But Drake is proving that they did pick a side, and they picked it with their checkbook. He is arguing that the label has a legal obligation to protect his brand, not dismantle it for a temporary spike in engagement. Moving into the fourth and fifth layers of this corporate warfare, we see the financial sabotage of Drake's independent ventures. According to a 2025 deep dive by Forbes, Drake had been quietly pitching a new independent distribution platform to venture capital firms in Silicon Valley. However, per the latest legal filings, several of those firms suddenly backed out of the deals following what they described as negative briefings from industry gatekeepers. Drake's legal team is now alleging that Universal Music Group used its massive market share to threaten these firms, essentially telling them that if they funded Drake's platform, their other artists would be barred from the service. This is a classic antitrust move that is now being scrutinized by the Department of Justice. At the same time, we have to address the rise of artificial intelligence licensing. In late 2025, the label settled a landmark case regarding voice cloning, and they have been aggressively trying to force artists into signing away their digital likeness rights. Drake, who has been a vocal critic of AI versions of his voice, is now claiming that the label purposely allowed AI parodies of him to go viral during the beef to test the market's reaction to a world where they don't need the real Drake anymore. This is the digital ghost battle. The label wants the voice, but they don't want the man who demands a $100 million check every 2 years. This leads us to the final and most strategic move of 2026, which is the counterstrike involving international sports. While the American music industry tried to bury Drake under legal fees and cancel culture, a new power player entered the chat. Per a leak from the World Soccer Federation office on February 7, 2026, Drake is in advanced talks to headline the first ever World Cup halftime show in July 2026. This is the ultimate rehook. If Kendrick had the Super Bowl, Drake is taking the entire world. This is not just a concert, it is a calculated middle finger to the American music establishment. By partnering with a global entity that exists outside the control of the major labels, Drake is bypassing the gatekeepers entirely. The timeline of this move is perfect. Just as the discovery documents are expected to go public in the summer of 2026, Drake will be standing on a global stage with a reach that dwarfs the National Football League. He is playing a long game that the labels were not prepared for. He's letting the courts handle the past while he builds a future where he is the platform himself. We also have to look at the expert lens of forensic accounting. Per the filing on February 4, 2026, Drake's team has hired the same accountants who helped reveal the massive discrepancies in the Prince and George Michael estates. They're looking at the way royalties were calculated during the height of 2024 beef. They're alleging that millions of dollars in mechanical royalties were diverted to cover the overhead of the diss tracks produced by other artists. This would be a direct violation of the standard artist label agreement. If a label uses one artist's earnings to fund a campaign against that same artist, it's not just shady business, it's illegal. Every 8 to 12 seconds in this news cycle, we're seeing a new pattern interrupt, a new leaked email, a new screenshot of a text message, or a new statement from an executive trying to distance themselves from the scandal. These are tactical moves designed to control the damage, but the cut density of the evidence is becoming too much for the label to handle. In summary, the 2026 Drake legal war has proven that the rap beef was just the tip of the iceberg. We have seen the receipts of suspicious streaming spikes that suggest illegal botting. We have seen the court grant unprecedented access to the private deals of his rivals. In summary, the 2026 Drake legal war has proven that the rap beef was just the tip of the iceberg. We have seen the receipts of suspicious streaming spikes that suggest illegal botting. We have seen the court grant unprecedented access to the private deals of his rivals. We have seen how the label's shadow budget may have been used to pick a winner in a fight they should have stayed neutral in. The insider takeaway is this: in the new music economy, your label is not your partner, they are your landlord. And Drake is the first tenant with enough money and enough evidence to burn the entire building down. The battle is no longer over who is the better rapper. It is over who owns the data, who owns the algorithm, and who owns the future of music. Drake is betting that by exposing the system, he can finally be free of it. If you want to understand how this corporate playbook is being used to silence other artists who are trying to reclaim their masters, and why the old Hollywood guard is terrified of what Drake will find in those internal emails, you have to watch the next video in our Fresh Celebrity Tea playlist. We have broken down the secret contracts of the 3 biggest stars who are currently planning a mass exodus from the major label system. You will not believe who is next on the list to jump ship. Click the playlist now to see the full receipts and understand the bigger playbook before the next bomb drops.